Welcome back to another episode of Seemingly Unpopular. This is episode 5, season 2.
Of season 2, correct.
Welcome to the show.
A very warm welcome to you all. I don't really know how to get into this first story. I'm sure it fits in with a lot of the events that have been going on. But I thought this was very interesting, so I thought we should do this.
So we're going to jump right into
We're going to jump right into it.
Because really, I mean, this is news that needs to be talked about.
It is, yeah. I'm sure everybody's aware about what is going on in Ukraine, and prayers for them are definitely needed because it's when you're going up against Russia, there's a lot of there's big opposition there. So
yeah, they definitely need our prayers. I know people that have connections in Ukraine, and it's got to be terrifying to live in that country and be invaded like they are.
Yeah, and I think
basically on all sides except for like the western.
I've seen several videos of people who are like, well, we knew this was coming, we just didn't expect it to be now. Like they went to war in 2014, I think, was the last time that they were in combat, at least.
Yeah.
Fighting with one another. I don't know if it was an all-out war or whatever, but
it wasn't on a scale like this.
Yeah, it wasn't.
He basically took over some territories.
Yeah, so they knew it was coming because obviously Putin is Putin, and what are you going to do? But I have seen some good news when it relates to, I guess, who's got the upper hand. I don't really know yet, but I don't know if this is solid, so take it with a grain of salt. But apparently Ukrainian forces are announcing that Russia's lost a lot of military equipment and a lot of men so far. And of course, death for anything is not a pretty picture, but when you're faced with
when you're the country being invaded,
yeah, it's a good
unprovoked.
It's good news to hear that you guys have some big fighting power. Anyway.
And just speaking of the courage of the citizens there, I mean, like right now, they basically. I watched a clip on CNN where they pretty much in a roundabout way admitted the importance of the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
In that, the Ukrainians, basically anybody who wanted a gun was going to get a gun and was going to fight for the country.
Yeah.
And basically they've banned men for, I forget what the age range is, all the way up to 60 years old, banned them from leaving the country. They have to stay and fight. And that's terrifying as well. We live in a country where we've had the draft in the past, but we're an all-voluntary force.
Yeah. I also read a news story on that, and I think in the news story they were like, that's highly unlikely because something about like 75% of the people who would be eligible are either obese or they're just not in the right...
We have real problems, America.
Mental capacity, so... they said there was a very low chance of the draft coming back, which is it's good, but at the same time, it's like, how big of a force do we have if things come our way?
And plus, with all the woke nonsense,
yeah,
like,
I can't imagine
who's fearing us currently.
I don't think anybody's fearing us. But anyway, along those lines, I came across this story. I think it was Slate.com. It's titled "Ukraine Could Be the Most Documented War in Human History," which I thought was pretty interesting. I'm just going to read a little bit of it. It starts. It's been less. Okay, so this was very, very close to right after the time or the first push into Ukraine, basically.
This probably would have been Thursday.
Yeah, this would have been early Thursday.
Wednesday night is like
Wednesday night, and then this would have probably been early Thursday morning. So it starts, it's been less than 24 hours since Russia invaded Ukraine, yet we already have more information about what's going on there than we would have in a week during the Iraq War. And that's, fairly recent. Already, Google Maps has revealed Russian armored invasion routes due to civilians in the area getting caught in traffic, leading Google to send out alerts. We know almost exactly when Russian forces began their helicopter assault near Kiev. We know that one of the 2 Russian soldiers captured by Ukrainian forces on Thursday is probably 20 years old. A reporter found his social media account. And then if and then it says, if you're interested, you can find footage of airstrikes, ground battles, Russian helicopters getting shot down, civilians being targeted, and most of it isn't coming from traditional sources. The amount of information flowing in live is so great that there are whole social media accounts devoted to analyzing Russian and Ukraine combat strength, the front lines, and the losses of equipment down to the vehicle, which is really cool. The sheer amount of information being widely available is unheard of for a major conflict. People in Ukraine are posting combat footage on Reddit for engagements that are still ongoing. Even TikTok has become a source for those who want to keep up with events ongoing in the country. It takes time, people, and equipment for media organizations to produce live reports on any event, especially a conflict. It is those things that will limit news organizations in their efforts to establish a full picture of what is occurring. What is coming out of Ukraine is simply impossible to produce on such a scale without citizens and soldiers throughout the country having easy access to cell phones, the internet, and by extension, social media apps. A large-scale modern war will be live-streamed, minute by minute, battle by battle, death by death, to the world. What is occurring is already horrific based on the information released just on the first day.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty horrific footage already.
Yeah. And this is going to be very much in your face for a long time because it's being basically live streamed. Every single thing that is happening is being broadcast to the world.
And there's good and bad to that.
Mm-hmm.
Good in that, the media can't have their way with it and sway it one way or the other. Because we can see for ourselves what's going on for real. But it's bad because the footage is awful, and there's really some heartbreaking footage out there.
Yeah, there is. Then it continues. The official messages coming out of Ukraine may sometimes seem garbled and confused, but very few governments, if any, could keep up with all the narratives that are occurring. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got a phone. They're all going to have their own opinion of it. Such confusion creates an ample opportunity for misinformation to spread and for actors to exploit, which they already have.
Already are.
And then this guy who's writing it was a former Army journalist and photographer in Iraq in 2016. He says, when I was a U.S. Army journalist and photographer, sorry, a same-day turnaround was considered quick by Department of Defense standards. If I could get footage and interviews from a fire base outside Mosul, is that how it's pronounced? Yeah. Mm-hmm. On Christmas into the living rooms of Americans back home before the new year, it was a win. In fact, it ended up taking me only 2 days. So that it used to take 2 days to get information from Iraq across the world to Americans. Right. And so now he goes on and he says, now that's way too slow. Half a century ago, the Vietnam War being widely televised fundamentally changed how the world viewed conflict. No longer would there be any rosy reports from the front lines through radio broadcasts that spoke coolly about the fighting or photos that took weeks or months to arrive. Now, people could view footage from the front lines of combat at home mere days after the events happened, the realities of the actions and of the combatants, and their effects readily apparent for all to see. Whether the images cause support for the conflict to grow or falter is up to debate, but conflicts would take place in living rooms and the battlefield from then on. By the time the U.S. invaded Iraq in 2003, it was given that the world was watching. It was a given that the world was watching, and that it took intentional effort to guide those eyes toward the intended message. So anyway, it goes on more and more as to how technology developed, and then it ends with, the scale of the impact of what's occurring and what we're seeing can't be underestimated. We're watching a massive conflict, the scale of which hasn't been seen on the continent in almost 100 years. We're watching it rock the second largest country in Europe. From our offices, our porches, our cars, and our schools, we can watch battles as they happen. What could this possibly mean? It's too soon to tell, but it signifies a historical change in how we fight and how the world watches those fights. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, this isn't going to be one of those conflicts that you just read about in history books and picture in your mind's eye.
This is going to be something that our children and possibly our children's children will know about because we'll have footage for it, and they'll have it as if they were watching it firsthand.
Yeah.
And especially because you get a first person view of pretty much everything that's going on, because the people who are getting shot at are taking videos. And it's scary. I think it's kind of cool that we're able to do that now.
Yeah, the technology's awesome, but on the flip side of that,
this
is not the kind of footage that we want to see.
This is not, no.
It's very dramatic and like I said, heartbreaking.
Yeah. So with the footage that's come out, I'm sure everybody listening has probably seen at least some of the footage that's come out of Ukraine. And I'm sure it will, hopefully, the footage that is seen will help to, will help people to sympathize with Ukraine, and will help.
Hopefully the true story is told.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, already we've got narratives floating around. We've got our own administration using it as a crutch for failure on their part. You know, blaming the economy. Oh, the economy's taking a hit because of war. Let's get real.
But yes, it's true. Some of it is because
of the war. Some of it, yeah.
But
we're already in the tank because
we wouldn't be lower in the tank if we hadn't been in the tank to begin with because of your policies.
If we had an administration that was truly concerned for what's best for America, we would still have a Keystone Pipeline that was shut down on day one of this administration.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have allowed Russia to continue to expand their oil production.
Yeah.
So we shut down our oil pipeline. Now we're reliant on
Russia.
We gave
permission to Russia to build their pipeline.
Yes, and now we're reliant and dependent on a foreign adversary
who's currently at war.
And now
with innocent people.
And now we're going to give them all kinds of sanctions. Well, who does that really hurt?
Us in the long run.
Yeah. What's going to happen to our gas prices here? They're going to skyrocket.
Yeah.
Because we're dependent. Whereas, you know.
Yeah.
Only a few years ago.
I kind of wonder if there's several European countries, especially that are part of NATO, where they're basically just deciding to not only sanction Russia, but just like completely cut off all ties with Russia as punishment for their actions. I support that, obviously, but at the same time, I can't help but wonder if Biden is sitting, you know, behind his desk, or somebody's whispering into his ear, you know, we should probably cut off ties with Russia.
Yeah.
And then he goes, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Pudding.
Is there pudding still?
And then that will have lasting effects on us, because now we're dependent on Russia and among other countries, which aren't necessarily our friends, that give us the oil we need. And if we shut them out completely, then what happens here? But, you know, the answer to the problem lies under the ground as we speak. We have tons.
Yeah, we're sitting on it.
Tons and tons of oil.
We're
and
just
all
not
he
allowed
has to do
utilize it.
Is activate it, and all our problems are solved.
It's just I was thinking about what to title this episode based on what we're going to talk about, and I couldn't even come up with a word. All I pictured was like the emoji with like the big wide eyes.
Yeah,
like that's it. Like all of these headlines and everything that's tied into them, and the absurdity coming out of this administration.
Yeah.
Where, you know, after every speech that President Biden gives, the next day, Jen Psaki has to walk it back.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
He said it in his speech.
He said it this way, but that's not what he really meant.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I heard what I heard.
We knew this was coming. We knew we would face something big under this administration. I mean, obviously, the world's been kind of taking a downward trend throughout these past, I'd say about 5 years. In the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of different hostilities between different countries, and with just general tension. And then as soon as we started fighting amongst ourselves, then we got a president that is practically brain dead, and something was going to happen. And whether that be COVID, or whether that be the Russia-Ukraine war, or whatever comes down the pipeline, this guy is not fit to handle it.
And I still don't see, if you're a liberal, I still don't see how you can continue to be a liberal. It is so in your face. You know, this was President Biden was the guy, Putin doesn't want me in office because I'm the only one to go toe to toe with him.
I think I saw, I don't remember if it was today or if he tweeted it today, but I saw a tweet from Biden that said, in America, we stand up to bullies, and we're gonna put sanctions on Russia, and it's like, okay, but
so when Trump was elected, it was all, oh, he's gonna start World War III. How's that working for you? Hello.
Yeah. There. I saw it was I was reading through a Twitter thread, regarding different. I guess I started with just a recap of what's going on in Ukraine that eventually led to all different types of American big people, whether it be politicians or celebrities or whatever. And this one guy, he was big, he had a blue check mark, so you know he's important.
Yeah, of course.
But he was like, and there it is, and he had retweeted a story that said Russian propaganda sites were using clips of Trump praising Putin to justify their attacks. And I'm like, whether they did that or not, that has no effect on what President Trump said about Putin. The only thing that they are doing is twisting his words. Whether you
we gotta
just
blame it on him somehow
at face value and just say, well, they used it, so he must have been praising Putin. And it's like, how dumb can you be? But those are the type of people that currently are the heads of this country. They worship, they fall down and they worship Biden and his entire administration. And
even though they talk nonsense.
He's doing nothing. Meanwhile, everything collapses around us. So it's like, in these times, I really, truly feel, obviously everything happens for a reason.
Yep.
There's a reason behind it. I honestly feel that the reason why everything is happening is that we can finally wake up and see. I mean, what better opportunity to see how incredibly terrible a president is than to see how he handles the situation of war, whether it be here or abroad, how he handles the situations that are handed to him. And it's not handed directly to him, obviously. There's somebody behind him pulling the strings.
Yeah.
But even just to see how his administration handles it, what better way to see how corrupt they are?
Yeah, it's completely opposite of what I want a president to be doing. Like this weekend, he's going home to Delaware.
Yep.
For the weekend.
Yeah.
You know, like nothing's going
on. Tradition, man. I can't stay at the White House. I got to go and, take my meds. But there's so many different things that you can argue about taxes. You can argue about student loan forgiveness. You can argue about abortion. You can argue about millions of things. But when you see actual, like I mentioned in that story, this is being broadcast live war. People's lives are currently at stake, and a lot of them might depend on the decisions that America makes in the coming weeks, months, years, however long this thing lasts. What better way to unite, not necessarily unite us as a people, but to start waking people up? Because there's very few things in this world that will shock you than the loss of human life.
Right.
When you know what's causing it. I think anybody who's not a complete psychopath is going to feel empathy and want to help. So there's obviously a reason why all of this is happening. I think that's why, because there's only so many things that you can argue about. You're not going to get anywhere. But when this is active, when you have to have a solution, then I don't know.
And that's part of what I want to see from a president is that empathy, rather than just hollow words.
Yeah.
You know, he continues to say, our prayers with the Ukrainian people, and this is outrageous and whatever. But he's like a shadow president because he's never there to answer any of the reporters' questions. As soon as he's done speaking, he turns around, turns his back, walks out the door. And even when he's forced to sit there and he's listening to really serious questions about what's going on in the world from the reporters, he sits there with a smile on his face and picks his teeth like it's some kind of joke.
Yeah. I think at this point everything is a joke to him because he can't understand the concept of he is the most powerful man possibly in the world right now.
Keep forgetting I'm president.
Exactly. He doesn't realize that because everybody takes care of him. He doesn't get the things laid on his desk. He doesn't get the reports of everything that's
He's
happening.
not in charge. He's not an in charge kind of guy.
Exactly. He's like he's the puppet on a string. He's the guy you push out on stage, and he's the guy that delivers the message of whatever's going on back behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And the curtain's closed, and you can't see anything that's going on. But there's your puppet.
Yep. Speaking of talking nonsense.
Oh yeah.
We actually have a word salad this week.
Yay! How long has it been since episode 1? Right.
Probably since we debuted this, which was probably a few episodes in. I think. I don't think we had it on the first one.
It wasn't on it.
It wasn't on the first episode.
Okay. So
because I had to have time to make
somewhere
this awesome jingle that we're about to play.
Somewhere in that because we debuted it before we had the jingle. Because I remember that was
we did.
I think it was the first episode.
We didn't have the jingle yet.
But if you have you have to go back and find it for us because it's I don't remember. I want to say it was the first episode.
I don't know if it was the first or not. I remember it was Jen Psaki.
Yeah, of course. How can you forget?
This time it's Kamala Harris, but before we get into it,
play the jingle.
Word salad. Word salad. Word salad. Word salad.
That was fresh.
So fly. That was fire. She spat straight fire.
Okay, so we actually have a video of this word salad for your viewing pleasure. Most of you have probably seen it. But when Vice President Harris was sent over for some reason to Germany to...
You know how well she handled the border.
To, what do they call that? Democratically or... to solve the situation without getting into a war.
Yeah, I don't know.
I forget the term. Anyway.
Either way, she probably sat up there and said... As Biden said in his last, but you know her method of talking. I don't know.
Yeah,
she probably didn't cackle a whole lot.
She sounds really serious, and she does the hand thing.
She gets quiet.
I can't see myself on camera doing it. That's this
I
all
can see
the time.
Yeah, you're good.
So she's asked by a reporter. The reporter's kind of quiet, so you can't really hear her. But she's asked what the American people can expect. If this was apparently, obviously before the invasion started to happen. But if Putin invades, then what can Americans expect?
Can you explain to Americans what exactly will they face if this happens?
Sure. As the president talked about in his speech, we are aware that, again, when America stands for her principles and all of the things that we hold dear, it requires sometimes for us to put ourselves out there in a way that maybe we will incur some cost. And in
like vulnerability?
That may relate to energy costs, for example. But we are taking
high energy costs.
Very specific and appropriate, I believe, steps to mitigate what that cost might be if it happens.
So what?
So we're going to have to put ourselves out there. And it's going to result in
we're going to be vulnerable.
Energy costs. She didn't necessarily mention vulnerability, but if you're going to put yourself out there, doesn't that mean vulnerability at least a little bit? Putting the self out there to who? Who are we putting ourselves out to?
But rest assured, they've got this.
Okay, but in World War II, did we just make ourselves weaker to make other nations stronger? Because it seems to me that we tried to make ourselves stronger in order to be the backbone for other nations.
Yeah, we were kind of the strong hand that came in there.
For most wars we've been in, I think we've kind of been there to strengthen ourselves because we've been selling war bonds and offering rewards for different services when they were truly needed. And we were trying to figure things out on how do we increase production? How do we make sure that there's, needed equipment.
So you're saying we made sense.
Yeah, like
Hmm.
the way it's supposed to work when you're the most powerful nation in the world. You allocate resources, you get together, you kind of figure out, okay, this is going to cost. How do we make up for it? And is it worth the cost? Should we figure out another way? But it doesn't seem like this administration has really
Doesn't
done
seem like
much
that at all.
thinking. It seems like most of the time they're just like, okay, well, if it costs us money, we'll print more.
Yeah, like we're gonna
and-
put all these sanctions in place, and we don't expect them to. We don't expect them to do anything.
No.
But we're gonna put the sanctions. So rest assured.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if this happens, then we might have to put ourselves out there just a little bit.
And just so you know, he's already made his decision. It's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like it's nothing but word salad.
I'm trying to imagine another president that was president during a major war going up and being like, listen, if they do it, we might have to suffer.
Yeah.
Just a little.
We're gonna just temporarily suffer.
We're going to temporarily suffer so that Russia can't do what they're planning to do. And I can understand that, and I would be willing to give up some of my American, pleasures in order for, to stop active war. But at the same time, if your only plan is to limit us in order to help others,
And you've actively from day one.
how are we supposed
to
to
limit us.
be there to help other people? How are we supposed to be able to feel good about going and helping and sending supplies or whatever we're doing? How are we supposed to be able to do it if we're currently suffering? It may be really minor, but
Seems kind of backwards. I don't know.
it's odd.
But her answer reminded me of this. If you remember this at all.
Okay. Recent polls have shown a
could
fifth of
forget?
Americans can't locate the U.S. on a world map. Why do you think this is?
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in
Some
our
people.
nation don't have maps,
They don't.
and I believe that our education,
That's
such as
shocking.
in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere
Yeah,
such
Iraq.
as, and I believe that they should. Our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. or should help South
no,
Africa.
it should help South
and should
Africa.
help the Iraq and the Asian countries. So we will be able to build up our future for
Okay.
Thank you very much, South Carolina.
I'll go
you.
sit down because we are all
Thank
stupid
you
for having to
for
listen to your answer.
educating us. Gotta have the maps for the Iraq
sure,
and
of course.
the South Africa.
Yeah.
You gotta have those maps.
If people don't have maps.
If people don't have maps, then they won't be able to locate the U.S. And obviously, our education should benefit us. I mean, South Africa
Of course.
and everything like such as. So,
Yeah.
I feel really bad for that girl because
I
she's
know.
gotten a lot of flack for that. But it's funny
It is
though,
funny.
and it's not like
Who knew that people didn't have maps?
I'm not trying to make fun of her. I don't think any of us are trying to make fun of her. It's a funny video, okay?
It's a funny situation.
Yeah.
And not for her, obviously. It
Obviously.
wouldn't be for me either. I would absolutely be terrified.
If that happened, almost anything can become meme material, and it'll be spread
Yeah.
throughout, again, internet.
I know what it's like to get up in front of people and your mind just goes completely blank.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
you just want to make noise at that point.
Mhm. So then everything starts repeating.
So then it's just garbage that comes out of your mouth. Tied to the Ukraine conflict, another story that you read and you just think of the emoji like, huh?
Yeah.
Despite our own southern border crisis,
Hmm.
the Border Patrol agents in our country that are working down there have been asked to deploy to Europe for the Ukraine conflict.
This adds another layer to our national security. If
I mean, I guess why not? Because they're not
they're not
able to do their job on the border
exactly.
effectively.
I mean, really, all they do is, apprehend them, and then they get the orders to ship them off to another state. So they're just the rallying force, I guess.
Yeah, and a memo sent Thursday morning and obtained by Just the News, where we got this article from, CBP's Office of Field Operations sought volunteers willing to deploy immediately to Poland for Operation Ukraine support. Well, that's rich, you know, and that's another one of those things. They came out early on and they're like, we totally respect, you know, nations have their right to sovereignty, and if their borders are being invaded, and we're like, hello, look down.
Yeah.
But that doesn't count, I guess.
Like I said, it adds another layer to our national security. Not only are we going to start having our energy prices rise in order to stop Russia, we're also letting in millions of undocumented illegal immigrants
and putting them on planes
and putting them on
flying
planes.
them to cities
Exactly.
around the nation.
Whose money, who knows where they get money from in order to be able to survive in this great nation. On top of that, wherever they put that money probably is not going to circulate throughout the economy very well. All while being completely anonymous. And how do you start developing a situation that will benefit the U.S. if you have no idea how many people are actually U.S. citizens or how many people are in this country, what all the variables are? How do you even start there?
I think that's part of the plan, is to make it so confusing that you can't do anything about what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when it comes to voting, like, they don't care who's documented and who's not. They're just going to allow anybody to vote.
Mm-hmm. And say people who aren't educated on certain matters, whether it be U.S. history or just what our values are going out and voting, I don't know, for the new, I don't know, whatever office you want to fill in. The guy who's going to make war decisions, the guy who's going to be able to be like, okay, we're going to war. And they want war with somebody who's like way out of our league or is not worth going to war for. It's going to be skewed, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The American people decision, if the majority of actual American citizens are saying, we don't want war with this. And then you've got all the other people who are like, yeah, war sounds good. I don't know. There's just only bad things that can come from that.
Yeah.
Not to mention how many people are violent criminals and, as Trump said, you know, like rapists and murderers, and they're not all that, obviously, for you lefties. But you run that risk. I don't care if they're Mexican. I don't care what nationality they are. Any person you bring into your state or your country just completely free of all restrictions, that poses a threat. I mean, would you let somebody walk into your front door of your house? No questions asked.
If you don't know them, don't know where they've been, don't know what their intentions are.
If they showed up on your front step and they said, I want in, and you open the door and you're like, come on in. No questions asked. And they went up to your room. They got real cozy in your bed. And you said, that's my bed. And you said, no, you let me in. I'm staying here. You didn't ask me any questions. There was no boundaries laid down. I can take this bed no matter what. So then you end up sleeping on the floor. He steals your money, walks out, and you don't have anything to say for it because you let him in.
I know.
This is exactly the problem with letting in illegal immigrants.
Yeah. We're just begging for a strong leader. You know, with the problems that we have, just begging for a strong leader.
So now here's a question that I think is important with this added layer of threat when it comes to what's going on in Europe right now. What candidate that is currently on the table, you know, between, I've seen Ron DeSantis, I've seen, I believe Trump's going to run again, just from what I've seen, and between just all the candidates, who is best to handle that. Trump wasn't a president he did handle ISIS pretty well. And he did handle many different terrorist organizations effectively. We haven't seen a whole lot of action.
Nobody
there.
was invading countries when he was in office.
Exactly. And then at the same time, I kind of wonder, well, it's different because I would think personally I would want Trump in because he's been there. He's been in that office. He's dealt with the big things. If we put DeSantis in, for me, I don't know how comfortable I would feel. He probably would do an okay job, but he's only been a governor. So it's like, I don't know. I go back and forth.
But he's been a strong governor.
He has been,
Who's been
correct.
willing to stand up to a corrupt government.
Yeah.
So that's good on his part. I feel like Trump is the first president in my lifetime that I can remember that actually stuck by what he promised he would do.
Of course.
And that says a lot.
He's not a politician.
He ran saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And I think he probably could have gotten a lot more done had he not been
if he wasn't fighting
attacked
a Russian
relentlessly
hoax.
with junk.
Yeah.
But he stuck to his word,
Yeah.
and he got a lot of things accomplished, and he was respected by other world leaders.
And let's not forget, President Biden, before he was even elected, if I'm elected, you're gonna see the greatest thing ever is we're gonna cure cancer. Where's cancer now, Biden? Okay, I'd like to see you fulfill that promise.
Well, he wanted to fulfill it by getting us all to focus on COVID-19, and then we forget that cancer even exists because
Cancer
nobody's dying
disappeared
from
at
cancer.
the beginning of 2020.
Isn't that
We have
odd?
no clue where cancer is now.
No. We need a strong leader. We don't need this guy. Listen to this.
Yesterday, the world heard clearly the full extent of Vladimir Putin's twisted rewrite of history, going back more than a century as he waxed eloquently,
So eloquent.
noting that, well, I'm not going to go into it, but nothing in Putin's
Please,
method
don't
of
go
I've
into
done lost my train of
indicate
thought.
any
I'm not
Don't
gonna
go
interest
into
in
it. We
pursuing
don't wanna
real
hear.
dialogue on European security in the year 2022.
With Vladimir,
He waxed eloquently?
he waxed eloquently. He did. He waxed so I can't tell. What does that mean? He waxed eloquently.
That he spoke in such an eloquent manner, and everything was very thought out and
But
precise.
waxed.
It's a term. I've heard it used it as a phrase in that way before, but my computer's just about dead.
Oh, it's notifying you.
It is. So yeah, I've seen a meme going around Facebook of like the Batman signal light, and it's just a silhouette of Trump.
Yeah, I've seen that as well.
It's like,
Yeah, it's like,
This
where
is
are
what
you
we're leaving.
now? We need you.
or we have the picture of like a fire hydrant or whatever. It says, in case of emergency, break glass, and Trump standing behind it.
Oh,
I've seen that one too.
yeah. I just feel like out of the candidates that are on the table, so far, I personally, I think Trump would be. I don't know about the best, but I think just
He's my top pick. So
he's got the experience, and I feel like I would value somebody with experience rather than putting somebody completely new in, especially because he's dealt with everything. Like I said, DeSantis has very strong capability of being able to turn the nation around. But I think if by the time the election rolls around, if we're in a spot where we don't have the free reins to just kind of focus on ourselves right now, then I think Trump might be more.
yeah, I kind of see DeSantis along the same lines as I saw Trump. You know, Trump was an outsider.
Of course.
I mean, he was not a politician.
Yeah.
And he wasn't going to conform to the Republican Party. DeSantis, I see the same kind of thing, that he's not just selling out for political gain or his own personal wealth. You know, he's been a person that stuck to his principles and morals and what he thought was true with the Constitution. So I like him as well. Maybe they should team up.
Should. Oh, wouldn't it be so great if Trump got elected president and he selected as vice president Ron DeSantis? Oh, that would be great. Talk about dream team.
I know Floridians don't want that.
Really?
Yeah.
They don't
'Cause
want
then
that?
they don't have him as a governor.
Oh, that's true. Sorry for Floridians. But think about it. You're losing a governor, but you're gaining a president. Think about it. I don't know. Or no, not a president. If he was vice president, then you would still have a vice president. He'd be in a higher position anyway.
Yeah, he would probably be a lot more successful than our current one.
Yeah. That goes without question.
Well, we are running low on time, but we do want to mention that there is the People's Convoy, or Freedom Convoy, I've heard it called as well. We've got our own truckers
I like
here in
People's
America.
Convoy better because we already had Freedom Convoy. That was Canada's thing.
Yeah. So the People's Convoy is on the road.
Yay.
They have left California and they are making their way to D.C. I've seen reports that they're going to put up the barricades again in D.C., just like they did before.
The truckers are coming.
Yeah.
Put up the fences and get in your bunkers. We're
So
all going to die.
They've been smart about it. They haven't really laid out their specific route. And there was like a certain number of trucks that were starting in California, but they're going to pick up more along the way. And from what I've read, they're picking different routes to get into D.C., which is probably very smart because they're probably going to be trying to tip them off
DC's not a
before
very
they get there.
big place either. I mean,
It's not.
Once the semis get there, it'll be blocked off.
If
for
you
quite a
surround
while.
it, yeah, you could choke it off.
You could choke it off completely.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there and what route Biden takes. If he's going to be anything like Trudeau and go full authoritarian, we'll see.
But don't you dare walk across the street and hold a Bible in front of a church.
I know.
Don't you dare do it.
You charlatan. Just doing it for political gain. So yeah, truckers are on the road. And we did have a story also that a poll was taken by Trafalgar Group. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Who knows?
But I found it on the Daily Wire that the majority of Democrats were, in fact, in favor of Trudeau's crackdown and freezing of bank accounts of truckers.
They're Democrats.
It's not shocking,
No.
to say the least. You would hope that people would be more pro-freedom than they are, but it is what it is.
Hey, I wonder maybe that's
2022.
where the whole sanctions idea comes from. People aren't agreeing. You know what? Let's just cut off their bank accounts. Let's cut off their ability to make money. But when it comes to dealing with Russia, then I'm all for that. You know, completely cut them off. I don't
Well,
care.
yeah, because they earned it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
They don't have any other ability to think. Their only ability to think is power. However it manifests itself, we're going to take that route. Power.
He couldn't sit down and talk with them
Mm-mm.
and negotiate with them. He went and hid from them, and then he went full authoritarian. And, yeah. So it'll be really interesting to see how Biden deals with it.
It will be.
Or, the people that are controlling Biden deal with it.
Yeah, I think if Biden fails, if his administration fails, people will always be there to do something. The American people
It'll be Trump's fault.
are a much stronger force than any government. I honestly think the American people can do much more than any government in the world, really.
Yeah.
But
And it's really our responsibility to hold the government accountable. So
it is.
that's why I'm all behind the truckers.
And in conclusion, please keep Ukraine in your prayers. That is that situation. Everything it's just going on. It's massive, and it's something that I think at least my generation hasn't really seen. And it can be scary, but I think you can get through anything if God is.
Yeah. Always remember that God is in control.
Of course.
And lean upon him.
Mm-hmm. That's the major thing I want to get across, at least, is just there's a big deal going on with Russia and Ukraine, and, there's only so much that humans can do. So it's up to God to really handle it.
Yeah.
And
He's the one in control.
Whatever outcome happens,
His will be done.
Yeah, of course.
And that's what we need to pray for.
Stay
and also,
positive.
Yeah, stay positive. And also in closing, what are your thoughts? We want to know what you guys think about situations that are going on. So leave us comments on our YouTube channel. Be sure to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. That'll help us reach a wider audience, and we would much appreciate it.
You can follow and rate our podcast on pretty much any podcast service. And we would appreciate 5 stars.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We look forward to talking with you again, and we'll probably do a live stream again
some
some
point.
point in the future.
Yep. Whenever the time
we don't
allows.
seem to get our stuff together far enough ahead of time.
No, we don't.
To actually announce it, so we actually have people listening actively. But yeah,
We don't make sure you guys are there to actually watch us and hear the message.
yeah. So stay tuned. We have a new show every week.
Yep.
Every
to.
Friday. So yeah, keep up to date. Hit that alarm bell. That way you get notifications when we put something out new.
Mm-hmm.
So until next time, we'll see you later.
Bye-bye.